to the press conference of the métier sérieux of the official section. Good morning, as I was saying, to a new press conference of the San Sebastian Film Festival. I think it's the last one. Today we have with us the team from the métier sérieux. Let me introduce you like Vincent LACOSTE said, the character within the film said, excuse my pronunciation if I make a mistake. But we have the actor William LEBGHIL, François CLUZET actor, director Thomas LILTI, Vincent LACOSTE actor, the producer Agnès Vallier, and the producer Emmanuel Barrault. Excuse my French pronunciation. But to start off with, I would like to start with a question for the director, for Thomas. Thomas, you in previous films, not in all of them, but obviously, but in a couple of films, you portrayed, you talked about public health and medicine. What drew you, in this case, to interest for another social service which is that important, which is that of education in this case? Well, I form part of a family of teachers. I'm a doctor, and my training background, my father's a doctor, but everyone's a teacher in my family. My mother, my brother, my uncle, auntie, grandparents. I've been in this atmosphere, quite unique atmosphere of teachers, so I'm very affectionate towards it. And when I grew up, since I was a kid, it attracts me quite a lot. I wanted to describe men, women who commit themselves in their profession. I try to define that these are professions which are of public use, which are non-profit making, such as doctors. These are professions that are poorly devalued and poorly considered. And through fiction, I've tried to understand, or at least I've tried to get interested in these men and women who are looking for some meaning in their profession and in their work. It seemed to me that it was essential. It's an essential issue to address nowadays. The truth is, we're talking on behalf of the teachers. We tell them how they've got to do their work well, and the truth is, we ignore what it means to be a teacher and what's the origin and the starting point of, and that was the starting point of me wanting to make this film. Yes, raise your hand when you have a question. Congratulations for the film. I'd like to know whether the actors as well as the director, whether you had any teacher in mind when you were growing up to inspire the portrayal of these teachers, who all of them are marvelous. All my teachers weren't that marvelous, by the way, so therefore I hope your teachers when you were growing up were much more inspiring. Well, let me answer, and then I'll allow the floor to the actors to say something, okay? To answer that question. It seems to me that they're all marvelous. Yes, you're right. The actors make the teachers be marvelous, kind, very committed, because they're very concerned about their work. This is the message that I want to portray, to show men and women who believe in what they do, despite the difficulties, the violence in their work. But this is what makes them deeply admirable. They're not very good teachers. For example, the character of Vincent is a young teacher who does what he can. He's a rookie that doesn't have too many weapons to face this work. François CLUZET is a teacher who's readdressing things. He's not so perspicacious in the way he carries out his profession. He's a bit behind the times. But Louise Bourgoin's character has difficulties in her work as a teacher. So it's a difficult profession, but there are teachers that inspired me very much. My teachers are teachers that are around me, and the ones that I had as a kid. I remember I had a teacher. She was a mathematics teacher. She wasn't exceptional, this woman, but for the first time, she made me see things differently. My relationship with teachers changed thanks to her. Until I was 13 or 14 years of age, I had conflict with the teacher. The teacher was an enemy, was the adversary, or the opponent. We were the students and they were the teachers. And it was like a tennis game. It was like a fight, shall we say. And as of then, I changed. I realized that the teachers were my allies and we could establish a relationship. I think teaching is to have an affectionate link or an exchange, like healing someone or treating someone like a doctor. Or there's also that relationship and exchange between the person who's ill and the doctor, the student and the teacher. That relationship goes both ways. Yes. Well, I didn't aspire myself on any specific teacher to portray this role. But I back at my mathematical notes. I wasn't brilliant at school, I must say this, a brilliant student. But your parents, you told me you weren't a poor student. Well, when I started to do films, everything went downhill from there. I wasn't that bad. Okay, well, whatever. So at school, I had a marvelous mathematics teacher who had a very playful way of teaching, very humoristic, and established good foundations. And I was always good at maths after that. And it didn't wear me out studying it because I understood everything. And as a maths teacher, I was good at maths, and I got into that role very well because I was good at maths. Francois? Yes, I seem to recall back then, that was the 18th century, by the way, when I went to school. We were very impressed by teachers back then. They had a lot of authority. We respect them enormously. But I was quite fortunate to have a teacher who was quite unique, a history and geography teacher, and who told us, I can teach you in half an hour if you concentrate very well. And the other half an hour, I'll talk about movies. It was very fortunate for me because the teacher conveyed his passion. He talked the journée d'éditeur. It was marvelous to be in class with this teacher. He was very passionate about, and a cinephile, very passionate about films. And it wasn't very useful, what he taught me, but I have very marvelous memories of that. I was a very marvelous student, between 5 or 7 out of 20. They were excellent, as you can see, my grades. I inspired for my character, my inspiration came from teachers who I thought that were the funniest. Humor has always made me want to learn from a teacher, to enjoy in class and have good grades because they communicate humor. I've had 2 or 3 teachers who were loads of fun. A French teacher, because I was poor in French before, but since then I wanted to read and in fact, he was an author and he wrote books. You are not very good at French, and I'm not too sure whether you're good at French now. Well, in Spanish, I do better in Spanish than in French, perhaps. His name was Frank Guillen, that was his name. He's not here, but I remember his name. Well, maybe he'll turn up this evening. No, I don't think so. That's a joke. Hi, good morning. Congratulations for the film. I would like to ask the director, more as a director, but as a screenwriter, the contrast that within the professional life and the domestic life, a lot of them got kids, they're problematic. There's an educational problem there. And I'd like to know whether with this you wanted to draw the attention of that dichotomy that exists, because we're not aware of it, between education and teaching. There's a lot of teaching, but education is failing at school and at home. It's a very interesting point of view, what you've said. My objective, and Francois said this as well, the idea, I said I'm going to talk about 3 places. The classroom, which we see quite a lot in the film, but that's not the main place. Then we have the school, the teacher's room, and the hallways, the restaurant, the self-service, the car, and to go back and home, and then their personal lives intimately. To tell the story about each of the characters in these 3 places, to show that effectively so, not everything is going well. In every place, not everything is working perfectly. For some things are good in class, and some things are good at home. But to show that this profession influences very powerfully in the personal life of people. It's very complicated. And to take, do professors at the same, you can't switch on and switch off and go home and go, okay, we've not done anything today and let's see what happens tomorrow. No, you can't switch off your profession. So therefore you take your students home with you, you take the exams of your students home with you, and you can't disconnect really. And either can you talk at home about the problems that you have at school. Making the film reminded me of the fact that this film could be, well, as a testimony, could serve as a testimony for a teacher, so that he can tell his family and the people next to him, well, this is what it means to be a teacher. This is the image of my profession. And that's the way I operate. It's very difficult to explain the work of a teacher, the violence, difficulty with the students throughout the full day. It's a job which always has continuous confrontation. And that's why I wanted to tell the intimate side of these people. It's very difficult to have a relationship with their children, to be a mother or a father. It's very complex, isn't it? It's not at all simple. And it's very interesting to see how we can all occupy ourselves, the kids, other people's kids, and try to teach them things and to create a link with them and then go home. How can you be a good mother or father? It's not as simple as that. And I've insisted a lot on the film. We see it through two characters, François CLUZET, Pierre, and the character of Louise Bourgois. The François CLUZET's character, well, I was very interested in it. He could be a teacher, and he has a strong school pressure upon his own child. The son suffers school depression through his father. So therefore, the affectionate link is hindered or damaged, and we see this problem among many teachers. Before, you were saying that teaching is to have an affectionate link with them. Directing is also to have an affectionate link. You've worked with several of the actors here in previous films. I don't know to what extent you wrote the script thinking about the fact that they were going to portray the characters. But apart from this, in the film, I think there's a degree of natural, it's very natural, not improvisation, but a lot of fluidity between the entire group. It flows. And on the one hand, I'd like to ask you, and this is for the director and the screenplay writer, to what extent it's important to manage the idea of community within the shooting of the film, and on the other hand, how the actors live through this process during the shoot of the film. Well, for me, it's of fundamental importance. It's of key importance, so to say, and I realize this, and I know that in my films are the image of my way of working. I need to work with people who I like, for those that I'm very affectionate with, and or actors and actresses as well, and also with the producers. It's the fourth film I've made with these producers, with the technical crew and distributors. It makes me feel confident and relaxed. The confidence to be in a team, and the actors and the actresses, the confidence that they give me, because I know them well. This is a trust that I return to them, and this gives me freedom. And it also gives us freedom on the set when we shoot. It contributes that flow that you say, the collective, the group exists at the image of the characters of the film who are kind. These are people who are pleasant, that you want to know and you want to love. Because I like to love my actors that I work with. When I started to write the script, I wrote it thinking about Vincent LACOSTE and François CLUZET first, because I wanted to see them together, to get together. I'd already made a couple of films with Vincent, one film with François. Marvelous experiences for me in my career as a director. That image, for them to be together, these are two generations of actors. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think that there's a certain familiarity between both of them. That relationship was going to work. And that's that there was going to be a bridge, a nexus between both generations, because I created links with them, sincere links and very strong links with them. So therefore, I think that link was going to contaminate them. There was good chemistry there when the rest of the characters entered into the script. I thought about William, because we'd just done our last film, and because William has a great affection for Vincent, and this strengthens those links. And then Louise Bourgoin, with whom I'd already worked with, and then Adele Exactopoulos. I'd never worked with her, I didn't know her, but she contributes a lot of novelty, shall we say, and also questions many things, puts you in danger, and then she's a marvelous actress as well, and she fitted into the group perfectly. I think what we've created a link, as in a community. It's sort of invited all the actors and actresses to my birthday, and the affection they have towards me has contaminated their relationships, and they've gotten along very well. And there's a trust that reigns throughout the set. I need that to feel free during the shooting of the film. And that's why you probably say there's a feeling of fluidity and improvisation, but there's a lot of work. I give them freedom when they act. I want the actors to feel free to express themselves during the shooting of the film. I'm not too sure whether the actors can confirm this idea that's just been explained by the director. Yes, of course. The fact that working with Thomas, when one is an actor, you can feel useless, and that you're doing work which is not very serious. But working with Thomas, it makes a lot of sense to what this profession of an actor means, because of the commitment and the demand of what he requires from us, or demands from us, thanks to the friendship and the affection that is developed film after film working with him. And I completely confirm what Thomas said. Yes, I agree. Well, there are some things that he says that aren't true, but no, that's okay. I think that they've said everything. But I think that at the beginning, a film is done between a producer and a director. And go back to how our film is manufactured. There are common points between Agnès Vallier, Manuel Barrault, the producers, and Thomas LILTI. There's humanism and demand. These two things together means that all of the people that participate in the making of a film, shoot, preparation, post-production. There's a team of almost 100 people. Well, Thomas LILTI makes up a team. Why? Because for him, we're all partners, men and women who participate. And it's because it makes him feel relaxed to have affection and to have friends in his team. This is a demand which is assumed. He's very kind, he's very pleasant. And in that team, which is very important, there's something almost virtuous at the service of a demand. And that is why perhaps we actors and actresses are so happy to work with him, because we see the result. We see the work that he's carried out, because he's an author, he's a screenwriter, and he's also the director. The person who's responsible for this film is him, and all of the team that surrounds him. We like to work in that atmosphere. I agree also with what's just been said, because for me, that's the big power that Thomas's work has. The collective vocation, the collective community, the group allows us to feel less lonely and elevates you in life as well. He's brought together actors and actors from the LILTI cinematic universe. It was necessary for this film because he likes to do a lot of group scenes. Because of the way he works now, we do a lot of improvisation. There's a written scene, and we start to improvise the beginning and the end. And it gives you a feeling of a lot of quite great reality, because then it's edited, and the scene is a mixture between the improvisation of the actors and the written screen, the written scene. But it's very important who's in the film, not only due to the ability they have to improvise, but the understanding between the actors throughout the shoot. Something happened there, something that was great, a good understanding, a good atmosphere, which is a key issue to portray this in the film, convey this in the film. That's important of a director. Thomas does it very well. Each director has their own method and their own style, but the great power that Thomas has is that he makes films which are in turn very realistic. I don't know how to say this. Yes, realistic, naturalist. These are very naturalist films, but quite often what happens in naturalist films is that these are films which are floating with not a lot of drama behind them. And here there's a lot of emotion, a lot of drama, giving a naturalist aspect in these films. Thank you. And bravo, Tomas. And as regard to what Vincent was saying, because it's a fluid film, I saw it like a film which was like a tree, and all of the branches and ramifications of the story doesn't have a classic plot in 3 acts and so on and so forth. I'd like to know the opinion of Tomas vis-a-vis this, but above all, I'd like to include in this humanism that you're talking about, Emmanuel and Agnes, their opinion about the production of the film. And then I've also seen that the film has been, if I'm not mistaken, it's been premiered for 2 weeks with a lot of audiences watching it. I'd like to know how to sell a film such as this and to make sure people go and see it. Above all, to take it as a reference here in Spain. Well, let me answer. I'm going to give the floor to Emmanuel and Agnes. As regards to writing of the film, it's quite a challenge. It doesn't have any classic drama perspective to it. We're going to continue what we do in ensemble pieces. For example, there's a difference between a group film and the main character is the group, as a group of individuals in this case. That's why I'm calling it a group film. One of the objectives of this film is to assume what happens, as if we're afraid, because it accompanies a true story, the story of a group during a school year. I believed in that idea. We can free ourselves. It's my 5th film. I want to explore new territories. And working with the same actors, I tell more or less the same stories, because here I am telling these vocational professions with a personal commitment that give meaning to your life, and that's in eternal. I want to find other ways of telling the story, looking for ways, and also different screenplays to not always do the same thing, to vary my scripts. And I want to undertake this story of a group with all of their individualities, it provides a bit of salt to the film. This is the objective from the beginning to the end, and during this writing the script, and during the shooting of the film, and in the editing, so that every character can tell an important story. For me, vis-a-vis the main issue that the film deals with, vis-a-vis that profession. And as regards to humanism, it's a recurrent issue in my films. I personally wouldn't have defined it that way because it escapes me, really. Quite often, I notice that there are ironic smiles when we talk about humanism, that I'm a bit utopian, as if I lived in a parallel universe or reality where everyone's very kind and nice, like in the world of Yuppie. No, I feel like trying to tell about kindness in my writing. This motivates me, and it is in the core of my activity from a novel standpoint, with positive characters who are kind in the real meaning of the word, and a certain humanism may emerge from my work, and I revindicate this to tell the story of bad people or bad guys, quote unquote. It's not a source of inspiration for me today. That's all I can say about the form, and it's the background of the project as well. Well, we realize that Thomas' work gives more room to what's happening off the screen. That is to say, he tells us less stories with classic sort of drama to it. So therefore, he focuses on the small little things of each character, creating proximity between the audience and the characters. It's the day-to-day life of these people. This daily life allows us to go down this journey with them. It was written that way, the film, and it's been edited that way as well, in order to accompany the actors and actresses the big dramatic elements are small things that we find in each and every one of the characters. It brings us get much closer to the characters. I agree. And in order to answer the question of realism, when one produces a film which has a lot of realism, it demands a lot of you, and Thomas is very demanding in everything he does, in the accessories and the veracity of what he tells, very precise documentation and research in the films on medicine, but also in this film on teaching. But as a producer, what's interesting is that reconstitution of how it reconstitutes life and a school with a lot of characters involved. All of the films don't have that realism, and that's what interests me for a producer such as me. And in order to answer about how it's been audience, yes, it was premiered 2 weeks ago in France, and it's been well taken by after 2 weeks of it being distributed. And I think that people that come to see this film are aware, or they're attracted perhaps, and this in all of my films, by the way, and this contributes to the success of my films. What they see is, I think, that regardless or besides seeing their favorite actors on screen, these are films that tell the stories of what's the day-to-day, but in a very novelesque way. It's not a whim that I've chosen a school as is shown in the media where teaching is going very poorly in France. Things aren't going too well. Perhaps we've got points in common with Spain because there are a lot of schools with difficulties in France, education with difficulties. But here I want to show how nearness with the people, a school that tells them that they're still fighting, that things can still be done that are very good, with the will to do so, thanks to the film. And thanks to film, I can tell stories that are beautiful, but things that are similar to the real life of people, and not only talk about the drama and the schools that we see it on TV, for example, in the news. And that's what I think, that's why the audiences are liking the film very well. Okay, a big round of applause for the film and the people that have been here today with us in the press conference.